What if I told you that the most talked about royal decision of the year might not be a decision at all? Reports are swirling that King Charles has handed Princess Anne sweeping authority over key palace responsibilities, and the way it's being described, you'd think it happened in a single dramatic night. But hold that thought, because when you line up what's actually being claimed against what's been quietly unfolding for more than a year, this so-called shock starts to look like something else entirely. And the gap between those two versions of the story, that might be the most revealing detail of all. Before we dig in, take a second to subscribe to Crown Watch so you never miss where this story goes next. Let's begin where every good royal mystery begins, the timeline. Because the timeline here doesn't whisper, it practically shouts. Early 2024. King Charles receives a cancer diagnosis, and within weeks the machinery of the monarchy begins recalibrating behind closed doors. On the surface, everything stayed calm. The official language was measured, reassuring. The king remains in good spirits and continues to work. But look at who started appearing where, and a different picture forms. Every time treatment forced Charles to cancel an engagement, one figure kept materializing in his place: Princess Anne. Ceremonies, commitments, public appearances. She absorbed them all, keeping the crown visible while her brother fought something no one could see. And here's a number that should stop you cold. 207. That's how many public engagements Anne carried out in 2024, more than any other working senior royal that year. Now add this: she did it while recovering from a concussion after a riding accident. She fell from a horse, suffered a head injury, and then returned to work and still outperformed the entire family. Think about what that tells you. That is not someone suddenly stepping up. That is someone who has been stepping up for decades and simply refused to stop when it got difficult. So when reports began circulating about a dramatic late-night audience at Buckingham Palace, an unscheduled private meeting where Charles allegedly summoned his sister to formally hand her authority, my honest first reaction was a question. What exactly changed? Because from where the public sits, Anne appeared to be running half the operation already. Now, the meeting itself, the descriptions, and I want to stress these come from unnamed sources and have not been confirmed by the palace, are cinematic. Aides reportedly cleared from the corridor. Nothing on the official schedule, no press release afterward, no carefully drafted statement about routine royal business. And I'll admit, that framing is seductive because Buckingham Palace may be the most schedule-obsessed institution on earth. Every engagement is logged, briefed, and filtered through layers of staff. If an unscheduled midnight meeting really happened the way sources suggest, it wouldn't be an accident. But here's the part nobody's talking about. We don't actually know it happened that way at all. What we can verify is far less theatrical and, honestly, far more convincing. Because look at what Charles has done in plain sight. May 2023, his coronation. He appointed Anne as goldstick in waiting, and she rode on horseback at the head of 6,000 members of the armed forces, escorting him through London. On the most important day of his life, the person he placed at his shoulder wasn't a courtier or a politician. It was his sister, and before that year was out, Parliament formalized what Charles clearly already believed, adding Anne as a Counsellor of State, legally empowered to carry out royal duties. If the king cannot, here's why that matters. That role traditionally goes to the monarch's spouse and the next 4 adults in the line of succession. Anne wasn't automatically entitled to it. Charles made sure she got it anyway. He didn't have to. He chose to. Sources describe the king during this period as visibly exhausted, but not uncertain. And that distinction, if accurate, is everything. Exhaustion lies in the body. Uncertainty lies in the structure. A tired king can still be a decisive one. So this supposedly stunning transfer of authority, it reads less like a plot twist and more like the paperwork finally catching up to reality. The foundation was poured long before any alleged midnight meeting. Which brings us to the question I find genuinely more interesting than whether that meeting occurred. Why Anne? Why not Prince William, the heir? Why not Queen Camilla, the king's own wife? Because on paper, those are the obvious candidates. Stay with me, because the answer runs deeper than protocol. It runs all the way back to childhood. Charles and Anne were born just 21 months apart, him in November 1948, her in August 1950. In a world where almost no one could understand what royal childhood actually felt like, they had each other. Their parents were constantly abroad on tours, so the two of them grew up side by side, playing, studying, roaming palace grounds together. They lacked the freedom ordinary children take for granted, but they never lacked an ally, and their personalities fit together like puzzle pieces. Charles was the sensitive one, drawn to art, to nature, to music, prone to hesitation and self-doubt. Anne was direct, confident, relentlessly practical. Where he paused, she moved. Where he doubted himself, she pushed him forward. Their differences didn't divide them. They completed each other. Want proof of how deep that bond ran? Look at Gordonstown, the brutal Scottish boarding school his father insisted on. Charles despised the place so much, he famously called it Colditz in kilts. Freezing weather, harsh discipline, crushing isolation. And through all of it, one of the very few people he confided in was Anne. She listened without judgment, and within royal circles, defended him from mockery. Decades later, when his marriage to Princess Diana was collapsing in front of the world's cameras, Anne did something remarkable for that family. Nothing, no interviews, no leaks, no sides taken, just quiet, private support for a brother whose public standing had cratered. And more recently, after they lost both parents, you could see it plainly. The two of them walking side by side at Queen Elizabeth's funeral procession, trading private words at memorials, grief and comfort intertwined. So when you ask why Anne, part of the answer is simply that no living person has known Charles longer, seen him lower, or stood by him more consistently. You cannot manufacture that with titles. But loyalty alone doesn't explain it. There's a resume here, and it's staggering. Anne has been called the backbone of the family, and that reputation was earned the slow way. She was 19 when she joined her parents on a month-long tour of Australia and New Zealand. That same year, 1970, she became president of Save the Children UK, and she didn't treat it as a ceremonial letterhead. She traveled, she spoke, she walked through some of the poorest communities on the planet, and she kept doing it for nearly half a century. Queen Elizabeth reportedly saw that tireless work as diplomacy in its purest form, proof the crown still had a human face. And while other royals cycled through scandal after scandal, Anne's record stayed clean. No glamour chasing, no attention seeking, just showing up. The public noticed. Polling consistently places Anne among the most positively viewed senior royals, with roughly 70% of Britons holding a favourable opinion of her. Third in overall popularity, just behind William and Catherine. And that's not mere likability. That's trust sustained over decades, largely untouched by tabloid drama. Now run the alternatives through that same filter. William is the heir, but he's raising a young family and being prepared for kingship as a long-term project, not a present-tense emergency. Camilla is Queen Consort, but her constitutional role is fundamentally different. She supports the king. She cannot legally step in for him the way a Counsellor of State can. Anne, meanwhile, already holds the constitutional authority, already commands the public trust, already has 50 years of experience, and her brother's total personal confidence. Framed that way, the shocking thing would have been Charles choosing anyone else. But there's another layer to this, and it's the one the palace would probably prefer nobody discussed. Reports have long suggested tension between Princess Anne and Queen Camilla. And I want to be crystal clear here. This comes from anonymous palace sources, none of it confirmed, so treat it as the rumor it is. The story goes that at a royal banquet, an evening meant for polished small talk, Anne allegedly turned to Camilla and said words to the effect of, "You are the Queen Consort, not the Queen." The room, sources claim, fell silent. Did it happen exactly that way? We'll almost certainly never know. But the sentiment fits everything we do know about Anne. Fiercely loyal to her mother, Queen Elizabeth II, who had reportedly wished for Camilla to remain Queen Consort, a nod to tradition and to the enduring memory of Diana. Sources suggest Anne reminded Camilla of that wish more than once. The unspoken accusation, allegedly, was overreach, Camilla quietly expanding her footprint inside the royal circle. And if there's any truth to it, picture Charles at the center, caught between a sister guarding their mother's legacy and a wife writing a new chapter. If, and it remains an if, those tensions are real, then elevating Anne isn't just crisis management. It's a signal about whose judgment carries the most weight when the king himself cannot be in the room. And it would explain why the reported meeting supposedly happened the way it did. No schedule, no announcement, no communications machinery, cushioning the blow. There's also a quieter, more practical thread running underneath all of this, and it's measured in acres and tax law rather than whispers. Anne's home is Gatcombe Park, 730 acres in Gloucestershire, purchased by Queen Elizabeth II back in 1976 for somewhere between £500,000 and £750,000. Today, it's valued at roughly £15 million. The estate holds a manor house, stables and additional homes where her children, Zara Tyndall and Peter Phillips, live. Anne is widely expected to pass it to them, and that's where the numbers turn brutal. UK inheritance tax runs at 40% on everything above a £325,000 threshold. For Zara and Peter, that could translate into a bill approaching £2.28 million, due within 6 months. But here's the thing, the family has tools. If the estate passes first to Anne's husband, Sir Timothy Laurence, the spousal exemption kicks in. Assets transferred to a spouse or civil partner carry no inheritance tax, and unused exemptions can even transfer forward, enlarging what eventually passes tax-free. Then there are the nil-rate band and residence nil-rate band, which together can shelter up to £500,000 per person when property goes to direct descendants. Lifetime gifting is another route. Under the 7-year rule, gifts escape inheritance tax entirely if the giver survives 7 years, meaning Anne could transfer the estate in stages. Discretionary trusts could spread the burden across generations without naming fixed beneficiaries. And if portions of Gatcombe qualify as working agricultural land, agricultural property relief could remove chunks of the estate from the tax net altogether. The point is, Gatcombe is almost certainly never being sold. The sentimental weight is too heavy. But protecting it demands planning, and that planning becomes urgent when the head of the wider family is seriously ill and the entire architecture of royal responsibility is being redrawn. Which finally brings us to the man standing quietly at the edge of this whole story, Sir Timothy Laurence. For 30 years, he has been perhaps the most invisible figure in British royal life. No headlines, no public voice, and if you know how the House of Windsor works, you know invisibility is rarely an accident. It's a skill. Born in 1955, he graduated from the University of Durham and built a naval career on pure discipline, rising through the Royal Navy with a reputation for being methodical, courteous, and above all, discreet. In the 1980s, he was appointed equerry to Queen Elizabeth II, inside the inner machinery of the household, managing schedules, accompanying the Queen, learning where the line sits between service and secrecy. And it was there, inside that duty, that he met Anne, just as her marriage to Captain Mark Phillips was falling apart under the glare of the press. Amid that chaos, something quieter took root. He was different, disciplined but kind, reserved but steady. Trust became something more, and they married at Crown Kirk, near Barmore. A royal wedding with no pageantry at all, defined by sincerity instead. He received no title, no princely rank, no official role, just her husband, 2 steps behind, always beside her, through state occasions, tours, funerals, and family storms. So when King Charles recently conferred on him the Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order, people fluent in the monarchy's hidden language sat up. That is not a routine gesture. After 3 decades of unrewarded service, the man who never asked for an honor finally received one, and the timing, landing right alongside Anne's reported elevation, is hard to dismiss as coincidence. In royal life, every medal means something. Every ribbon whispers intent. So where does all of this actually leave us? With a king fighting cancer, who, according to reports, has placed his sister in a position of remarkable authority. With a Princess Royal, who has effectively been holding the institution together for years and may now simply be getting official credit for it. with a queen consort who, if the unverified accounts are true, has been reminded of the boundaries of her role, with an heir being groomed for the throne, but deliberately not yet loaded with its full weight, and with a beloved family estate that will need careful, deliberate planning to reach the next generation intact. The headlines call this a shock, a stunning twist that rattled Britain. But trace the thread back: the childhood bond, the Gordonstoun letters of loyalty, the 50 years of service, the Counsellor of State role, the 70% approval, the coronation horseback ride, and the shock evaporates. What remains looks almost inevitable. The only genuine surprise is how long it took to become official. Strip away the cleared corridors and the midnight drama, which, again, remain unconfirmed, and the real story is smaller, quieter, and somehow more moving. A tired king, facing the hardest fight of his life, turned to the one person who has been standing beside him since before either of them could understand what the crown would cost. Not because of intrigue, not because of politics, but because in 75 years, she has never once let him down. And in a family where loyalty is currency, that makes Princess Anne the richest of them all.